everyone, welcome back to another episode from the Woods Collab, and this is the Woods Collab podcast, and this is
Nikisha Woods.
I'm Mike Woods, and we are the Woods Collab.
Oh, I didn't know we were doing cups.
We're doing cups.
Okay.
We are the Woods Collab. We are the Woods Collab. Today we're going to talk about having a victim mentality in a professional setting. Having a victim mentality in a professional setting. So the goal here with the Woods Collab is to discuss topics, discuss things that we can reflect on within ourselves, looking at ourselves to say, hey, is this me? Is there an opportunity for me to get better? And as we acknowledge those things, that'll help us to resolve those situations. That'll give us different perspective as we look at life a little bit different. So the lens that we're going to look through now is identifying if we're having a victim mentality in our workspaces or when we interact with others. So Keisha, tell us about when you think of a victim mentality. How do you define that? Define that for the people.
So a victim mentality, that's a mouthful. It's really about, it's everyone else, but it's not me. So in these different environments, these different projects, these different things that I'm working on, I'm not taking responsibility over how I'm showing up. Instead, all of the focus is on what someone else is doing and how they're showing up. And so now I'm not being accountable, and my energy and my focus is on someone else's interaction. And it could be true that someone's interaction is making me feel threatened or insecure or triggered or not emotionally safe in the workplace. But if it's constantly that type of thing, where in every situation I feel like I'm being attacked or my ideals are being judged, and I'm not taking that time to step back and reflect on how did I really show up and what can I do, I think that falls into a victim mentality. What do you think?
I agree, where you're identifying yourself as the victim.
Yeah.
Well, they're out to get me.
Yeah.
Or, yep, I'm being accused here. I'm at fault. So with that, we want to set, before we go further in the conversation, we want to make sure we set the tone here. This is specific to a professional setting. And there are a lot of times where maybe we are the victim. Maybe someone did do something. Maybe there's people that we interact with it wasn't fair or it was not right. Yeah. Maybe the culture was set. Maybe the tone was set. The table was set. And it didn't work in our favor and it wasn't right.
Yeah.
So what we want to do, we want to take those, setting those on the side. We're going to move those right over here. So what we want to focus on are the things that we can control to see, are we identifying that, or we are embracing that type of mentality for ourselves? And is there something that we can do about it? So the first step, and if you all look at the few different episodes we talk about, is identifying if that's where you are.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. So identifying where, that's step one. Are we playing the role of the victim? So how do you know? So talk about, how do you know if we're actually playing the role of the victim? What you said before kind of fed into that. But what are some common things that you have seen, maybe you've done in the past, or what you've seen from others where you are actually playing that role for the victim?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, if I were to reflect on moments where I felt a little bit less secure or more triggered and I didn't feel empowered, it's because you start to tell a story in your own mind about why these things are happening to you. Instead of having conversations, seeking to understand, saying, hey, Michael, in that meeting, I noticed that you cut me off multiple times and you laughed with a counterpart while I was speaking. I'm just curious. I want to get better. Help me understand what took place. Instead, if I don't have that conversation and I start to think about what it could be, then I could be telling myself a story that's completely untrue. And then I start to feel like a victim. And when you start to feel like a victim, you start to act like a victim. And in my experiences, when people tend to show up that way, I don't think they know it. Is that your experience? Where it's like, you're seeing it, okay, well, you're always complaining about everyone else. Where's your accountability in it? Do you feel that people tend to self-identify, or do you think they tend to live in that dark hole and then they're starting to project that feeling and then they just kind of get lost in it? I just want to know what your experience has been.
Yeah, if if one doesn't look in the mirror or someone doesn't call that behavior out, you do see others live in that dark hole. And I think I've done it. And looking back over my career, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it until you have that moment where, and it could be that moment of self-reflection, or maybe you start to write down new goals and you say, wait a second, I want to accomplish this thing, but I'm standing in my own way. The reason I'm not doing it is because of myself.
Yeah.
But I think so. I think we're just living. Sometimes we'll go living about because that's all we know until someone says, hey, wait a second. I see that this is how you're showing up.
Yeah.
Or you just have that moment of clarity, maybe through reading or praying or meditating. You say, wait a second, I have some opportunities with myself that I need to get together. That's why it's important too, and we've talked about this before, to have trusted individuals around you who will call out your crap too.
Yeah.
Who will call you out and say, hey, heads up, the way you're showing up, the way you're going about your business, I don't think that aligns with your personal goals that you have for yourself. You might want to get that together.
Yeah, and we talked about it being a dark hole, but I also feel like it could be a very lonely place, right? If you feel like maybe your ideas aren't valued, or you feel like you're in a situation where no one is helping you get to that next level, and you don't feel empowered enough to take the reins and say, okay, this is my career path. This is what I want for myself. This is the future that I would like. Let me figure it out and understand what I need to do, instead of relying on my leader to say, hey, here's the playbook, run the play. And if you run the play, you're gonna end up here, and this is where you want to go. Yes, your leader is there to help you identify your goals and to support those goals, but you got to do that work, right? And so when you talk about self-identifying where you are, you're also self-identifying your goals, where you want to be, and then holding yourself accountable to reaching those goals, and not just relying on everyone around you, the people you work with, your company, your leader, to put you in the right spot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think sometimes too, we'll, like you mentioned, we get so caught up in the day-to-day of, hey, this is the job that I'm going to because I got to go there because it helps to pay the bills. And if anything, I just got to go. So it could come with accepting what comes with the territory. So if it's those others that are contributing towards how I identify being the victim, I'm just going about my business, because when it's all said and done, maybe it doesn't really matter for me. But I think it's very important for us to really look at, because that could be taxing on the mental state as well.
Oh, for sure.
Just continuing to deal with that, but not addressing the root cause, not having those conversations with people, not looking in the mirror to say, am I in a bad place? Do I need to make a shift?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I know we're going to dig into like, what can you do if you identify in the victim mentality, but you saying that really helped me to think about control what you can control, right? And so sometimes you are in situations where you're like, you know what, this doesn't feel right. I'm not quite sure what the next thing is for me or what my career path looks like, but there are going to be things that you can do in that moment, so that you can make connections, so that you can network, so you can provide feedback, so that you can learn something about a new role maybe that's going to take you to the next level. But it's about controlling what you can control. And I got to keep using that word, empower, right? Empower yourself. If you feel no one else will empower you, find ways to empower yourself. True.
So let's recap that for a moment. So one, it's important, again, going back, when others contribute to being the victim, we're moving them aside. This is, like you said, controlling what we can control. So the first step is to really look in the mirror and identify, is that the space that we're in right now? Am I playing the victim? Am I identifying with the victim? In conversations, tangible things that we can do. In conversations, am I pointing the blame to others for being the reason things are the way they are?
Yeah.
Am I not taking accountability for those things? Am I not controlling what I'm controlling, but just allowing others to control the narrative? Am I just going with the flow? Yeah. Those think about even when you show up to work. What's your mindset? Where's your mindset at when you walk in the door?
Right.
Identifying that. Am I playing the role of the victim? So if you walk into work and someone says, "Hey, we're doing some casting,"
yes,
would you be cast for the victim?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
It's something to think about,
yeah,
right? They say, "Hey, we're casting for some roles. Would you be cast?" That's the victim right there. You got yourself apart. But it's important to identify that.
Yeah.
Then we also say this too. When we're showing up, we have to question ourselves as well. So if we're showing up and saying, I'm the victim, blame them, blame him, blame the organization, blame the structure, blame the economy, blame all of these things, what am I going to do about it? Mm-hmm. What exactly am I going to do about it if I find myself in that role?
Yeah.
So I'll ask you this. If one is playing the victim, mm-hmm. and I've identified, say, I am playing the victim.
That's going to be hard for a lot of people to do, because I'm convinced that most people who play that role are unaware. So there's going to require some self-awareness.
True.
For them to be able to identify it. But I will say the byproduct of being the victim, a lot of times you find yourself where no matter who the leader is, no matter what the company is, no matter who the person is, woe is me, this happens to me, why is this the situation? And you are the only common denominator, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really time to just take a moment back and self-reflect to say, and this isn't my experience, so please do not tweet me, right? But this is my experience. 99.9% of the times where there is a disagreement or a situation that doesn't go well, you have some culpability, or you should be held accountable to something. There is something that you could have done better, right? There is something that you could have done differently. Mm. There is a different way you could have presented it, asked a question, framed something. There is something. And if you are not putting yourself in that mode to self-reflect on what could I have done differently or how can I show up next time, you will consistently play that role. And nobody might not tell you that that's the role you're playing. But I guarantee you, those opportunities that would show up, right? Those people that would tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, how about this project? How about this situation? How about this promotion? It might not happen because they can feel the energy that comes from being a victim.
It requires work.
Oh, for sure.
It requires work, but you, as you mentioned, you can reflect. And that's one step where we know ourselves more than anybody else does. Mm-hmm. But also is feel free to ask, like someone might not. You have some people that'll tell you and call you out. Ask people too.
Yeah, is it me?
Hey, let me ask you a question. I've been doing some self-reflection about, checked out the Woods Collab podcast. They were talking about being the victim. Do you feel that I play the role of, be real with me, mm-hmm. be authentic with me? Do you feel I play the role of the victim? Ask people you trust, mm-hmm. and be ready to receive the feedback, and then know once you receive the feedback, be ready to make that change as well. Because one thing we can do, if it is a place where we are playing the victim, we can also turn that thing around. Mm-hmm. If we've identified that, okay, maybe I've shown up in a different way. And it could have been a subtle way. Maybe you said something, maybe you didn't, but the way we're going about carrying ourselves, you better believe others have picked up on that. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, once you acknowledge it and then you say, I'm going to do some things different, tangible things that you could do different. Change the way that you speak about a thing. Yeah. Now you can start moving towards offering solutions. Now, instead of playing the blame game, you're contributing towards impact, turning things around. Guaranteed, if you use that formula, the next thing you know, people are going to say, wow, you're really contributing to this initiative that we're going on. What happened? What did you do? Then ultimately you just change your mindset.
Mm-hmm. Mindset.
What's your quote you have? Change your mindset.
When you change your mindset, you change the world around you.
Change the world around you.
Yeah, and so I just had like a visual when you were saying it of being in that dark hole, right? Being in that space. And if you are in a hole, sometimes it's hard for you to look on the bright side and you see dirt all around you and you just feel like there's no way to get out. But if you look above, there's a light shining and there's hope. And it's really about how do I strategically place myself in a better position to climb out of this hole? What are the tools I need, the resources I need, the podcasts that I need? We're plugging away today, honey. But what are those, the books, right? The inspirations, the quotes, what are those things? And when you're able to identify it, now you're actively looking for the things that are going well instead of the things that feel like they're pushing you further down. Mm. And so it is, to your point, it is a mindset thing. But at the end of the day, there is no perfect relationship, right? Between you and a teammate and your leader and your leader's leader in a company or organization. There is no perfect relationship, but you are an equal contributor to every single relationship that you're a part of. And so that's where your self-accountability and self-reflection is key.
That's very true. No, I love it. That's very true. So again, this is work, and it can be challenging work, and sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not easy to call ourselves out. So just to go back, in a professional setting. Now, others that have contributed to it, we're putting them aside. We'll deal with them later. But one, let's think about, are we playing the role of the victim as we meditate, as we think about that, as we self-reflect, as we look in the mirror? And then also, when we think about that and we identify maybe we are playing the role of the victim, what can we do about it? What can we really do about it? We could have conversations with others to provide some feedback. We can give feedback from ourselves. Talk to those people that you trust, and then start to shift the way you speak about things. Start to shift if you're not contributing towards a solution. Maybe you're offering ideas towards the solution. Maybe you're asking questions to get more understanding and get more clarity. And then the next thing you know, instead of playing the role of the victim, now you're being cast as the champion.
Okay.
That's it. So give us some feedback. If you've ever been in a spot where you have played the role of the victim, or maybe you've seen someone else play the role of the victim and you were able to change that thing around, or you were able to offer some insight, or maybe you didn't tell them at all. So just give us some feedback on how you have dealt with that for yourselves, or how you've dealt with that with others that you have worked with. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think so. Yeah, I think this is it, right?
That's it.
So we understand that it can be very tough to self-reflect and think about that. And when we hear that term, it sounds like, oh my gosh, that's a really tough term to identify with. But just because you feel like you're playing the role of the victim now, or maybe in the past, does not mean you have to stay there. Control what you can control. Everything we talked about today. So that's it. This is the Woods Collab. My name is Keisha Woods, and this is
Mike Woods.
And we're out.